Verizon is the latest big tech company to drop the DEI policies like a radioactive hot potato covered in rotten sour cream. Last Thursday, May 15th, I get an email. I get an email from a whistleblower over at Verizon with a copy of a letter from the executive vice president, from the vice president of Verizon to the FCC chairman, advising Chairman Carr that Verizon would be dropping the majority of their DEI policies, certainly their measurable DEI policies, as a result of the open investigation that the FCC began against Verizon back in February. This is absolutely fascinating. I published this all over on X because it was a big thing that was happening. I had to get it out there. And then, hold on, let me see if I've got this here. And then just about 14, 15 hours later, the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, published the exact same letter himself. I'm gonna read off of the leaked copy I got half a day earlier, just because it seems cool and it feels more clandestine and ooh sneaky. But very, very cool. Thank you, by the way, to the whistleblower who brought this to my attention. A couple of notes on this, because this is pretty interesting. Verizon, quote, will no longer have a team or any individual roles focused on DEI. Now, I hear a lot of you out there going, they're just renaming it. Sure, they won't have a team focused on DEI, but they'll have a team focused on bridge or diversityness or something like that, right? Well, possibly. I mean, that certainly is possible, but it does look like they are taking specific steps that are distinctly measurable. Following. Employees who had roles or responsibilities that include DEI will now focus on HR talent objectives. Verizon is removing references to DEI or diversity, equity, and inclusion from its employee training materials. And I think this was rather telling. They actually stated their reasons for dropping DEI. And obviously, these are knowing that this information would become public, and this was more to, make the FCC and the Trump administration happy and to placate any potential lawsuits and the like. But still interesting to read just the same. Quote, we recognize that the regulatory and policy landscape surrounding diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, has changed. The Supreme Court, the president's executive orders, and federal mandates require changes in the way companies approach DEI issues moving forward, end quote. So in other words, the legal landscape has changed. It has now become clear that the illegal thing we were doing, it's really illegal, and people aren't going to put up with the illegality of it anymore, so we better stop doing the illegal thing. Let's stop being criminals here. However, they did say this, quote, Verizon recognizes that some DEI policies and practices could be associated with discrimination. End quote. I thought that was amazing. All right, and here's why. Okay, it was kind of pussyfooting around, kind of tiptoeing and dancing around, like it wasn't really taking responsibility. It was, some DEI could be associated with discrimination. I was a little bit weaselly, but this was the most directly I've seen of a big tech company actually come out and say DEI equals discrimination, right? It's the closest I've seen to that. We've seen IBM and Red Hat and Adobe and whatnot. They've come out and they've said that because of Trump's executive orders and internal employee pressure and journalistic pressure and whatnot, we're going to be changing our diversity policies, right? But none of them have come out and stated, but the DEI stuff was discriminatory. None of them said that. Verizon is here actually saying that, at least close to saying that. They're saying it as close as they can, I think, without admitting guilt. It could be associated with some illegality, perhaps. But I still, just the same, it's the closest we've seen, and I approve of that because honestly, as weaselly as that language is, it's the most direct we've seen out of any of these big tech companies. So it's worth noting that. So this was all really kicked off on February 27th of this year, when Brendan Carr, the chairman of the FCC, posted, quote, "I am concerned by Verizon's continued focus on promoting DEI. Expect all regulated businesses to end invidious forms of discrimination." And he sent a 3-page letter over to NVIDIA based on that. So they're directly responding to that and dropping it. I posted all of the leaked our letter from the Verizon vice president, Vandana Venkatesh. Hold on, let me see if I've got that right. Vandana Venkatesh, the Verizon executive vice president who sent this particular letter. I posted on the 15th. Technically, I had an exclusive leak, but I only really had an exclusive leak for like little over 12 hours, and then Brendan Carr published the full letter unredacted. So you can just go read it from him too. A few other tidbits. Verizon is removing its diversity and inclusion website entirely. So they're getting rid of that entirely. Verizon will no longer maintain any workforce diversity goals. That's a really big one. That is an incredibly big one, because remember, this is what IBM is currently, and Red Hat are being sued about, is they've got those diversity goals in place, and they tie management compensation and whatnot to those diversity goals. And that's illegal. That's basically saying that merit isn't important. Meritocracy isn't important. We are simply going to hire and fire and promote and reward people based on skin color or immutable characteristics or the like. And that's illegal. You can't do that. Verizon has eliminated supplier diversity programs. This is another one that we saw a bunch with some of the other companies as well, like IBM and Red Hat. They had policies in place where if they were working with outside vendors, right, third-party consultant companies and vendors and suppliers and whatnot, that they wanted to hit a certain threshold, like they had to be black owned, like 30+% of them had to be black owned, which is strange. I don't know why that would matter if you're making software or running cell phone services. I don't know why you would care what the ethnicity of the person who runs the company you work with is, but this is why they're getting rid of it, right? This is why they're getting rid of it. It is clearly very illegal. So that's all happening. And what's nice about that is a lot of these are very distinct and measurable things. So some of this could be a bit weaselly, right? We're going to get rid of some of our DEI language. Okay, great. Is this just going to be renamed? Are we just going to use different terminology and phrasing, but have the same sorts of ideas now, bridge and whatnot? Very possibly. Some companies are going that route. But some of these things are distinct and measurable, and they're clearly ending the programs because they were illegal, and the government is going after companies that are doing these illegal things, like supplier diversity programs, workplace diversity goals and incentives. These are illegal, discriminatory things, and Verizon actually came out and admitted that they were discriminatory, and admitted that the legality is changing. So we're probably going to get sued into oblivion if we don't change too. And so they changed. So it's fascinating that this is occurring. It's occurring increasingly rapidly across big tech. Not all companies are making these changes, though. Some companies are digging in. Apple had a proposal at their most recent shareholder meeting to end these illegal diversity programs. And the Apple board of directors actually issued a letter to all of their shareholders advising them to vote against such a measure to allow Apple to continue to break the law. And I don't know why. It seems ridiculous. In order to continue diversity, DEI, hiring and firing, and supplier programs and the like. It's absolutely asinine that some companies are still pushing forward. Microsoft is still pushing forward. Actually, Microsoft's an interesting case because I'm getting real mixed signals from whistleblowers and Microsoft. Several whistleblowers have contacted me over the last a couple of weeks alone, and people have been pointing out that in some cases, Microsoft is quietly, silently removing a lot of their diversity hiring and firing website material, right? So a lot of their policies around DEI quotas and whatnot seem to be just vanishing. On the other hand, a lot of the woke and DEI infused political stuff, activism within the company almost seems to be ramping up. It's very mixed messaging. And they haven't made official declarations of ditching DEI, promoting DEI, or whatnot around that. A lot of you might remember, and just to put this all into context, last summer, the summer of 2024, people made big news that Microsoft was ending DEI programs, and that was fake news. That was a made-up story, basically. What happened back then was that Microsoft had a series of layoffs. One team, that happened to have some DEI focus, of just a handful of people, was involved in the layoff. But then during that same process, that same period, a lot of their employees were concerned because they have inside Microsoft a lot of employees that are big believers in DEI and woke activism. And so their employees were upset. They're like, are we laying off DEI people? And so Microsoft made an internal and an external statement saying, no. Microsoft is 100% committed to DEI programs, to diversity quotas, to all of it. It's just we had some layoffs, and everyone gets caught up in the layoffs sometimes. And so in this case, one particular team did. So that's where Microsoft has been over the last, 8-9 months or so. Now that brings us to today, and where they stand exactly on DEI quotas at Microsoft remains a big unknown. A real big unknown. I'm hearing mixed things, and I'll keep people posted as I figure out exactly what's going on. But just the same, Verizon dropping their DEI, Adobe dropping their DEI, Red Hat and IBM dropping their. This is ramping up, and I expect more to ramp up in the days and weeks ahead. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers for making this sort of coverage possible. Thank you to the whistleblowers who sent me this leak, even though it was only an exclusive leak for about half a day. Still fun. Still a lot of fun. Just to put this out there, to anyone who saw this news of when the FCC chairman, Brendan Carr, came out and posted the letter online from Verizon and declared, hey, we have at least a minor victory here against DEI. To all the people who said, hey, breaking news, this is exciting. If you'd followed the Lunduke Journal, you'd have had that half a day earlier. So just putting that out there. Thank you, though, to the whistleblowers. Go to lunduke.com. There's a little Become a Tech Whistleblower link. There's an email address. Lots of ways to get a hold of me. No wrong way. Lots of options for keeping your identity a secret should you wish to do that. I never divulge any whistleblower identity regardless, but lots and lots of options. Follow that link to become a tech whistleblower, and let me know what's happening with some of these companies, because boy howdy, so much stuff would just never come to light if the whistleblowers didn't send it on over, right? I mean, it's amazing how much stuff we know about Microsoft and IBM and Red Hat and Adobe and so many others because of the whistleblowers. And it's valuable and important information to get out there. It's in the public interest. So thank you. Again, lunduke.com. Click on some links because links are great. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes across the inner tubes, I do declare end broadcast.